President Biden says he's, quote, confident about working out a deal with congressional Republicans on raising the debt ceiling. His remarks came a day after he held a second round of talks with those congressional leaders, as you can see in the Oval Office. Now, they didn't agree on something in that meeting, but the president said afterwards, along with Speaker Kevin McCarthy, that they would name negotiators to work on the process of hammering a deal out. Of course, time is of the essence. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said default could happen as soon as June 1st. For more on all this, Ed O'Keefe and Scott MacFarlane join us now. Ed is CBS News' senior White House and political correspondent. Scott, CBS News congressional correspondent. Ed, it matters who's at the table. Who is at the table? Who is the White House appointed to lead these negotiations with the congressional House Republicans?
Names that a lot of people here in Washington know, that a lot of people outside of Washington don't know, and that's by design because they are really the definition of insiders. Steve Ricchetti, who is a longtime consigliere, brain, aide to the president, somebody who really knows his politics, knows him, knows what he's looking for.
And knows the politics of the Democratic constituencies in the House and Senate.
And perhaps even more importantly, especially knows the moderate Democrats and the Republicans. This is somebody who helped put the Inflation Reduction Act together last year, got Joe Manchin to yes, and is now somebody who Republicans believe they can trust in these negotiations.
Another key player also from the White House is
right. Shalonda Young, the budget director, who was perhaps most critically in this negotiation the former staff director or in charge of the House Appropriations Committee, which is the one that writes all the spending bills. So not only does she know how to write them, she also knows how House Democrats are going to tick or click on some of this stuff, given that she very recently worked with a lot of them and in essence knows their pressure points, what will be acceptable to most, what won't be, and therefore what's palatable in a negotiation.
Scott, so let's clear something up. These are negotiations. The White House has completely lost that article of faith and positioning. These are full-blown negotiations. And with these two heavy hitters from the White House, it signals, at least from my perspective, a sign of respect that Speaker McCarthy has been craving and believes had been denied up until very recently, and that may move things forward. Yes?
Not only is it a negotiation now, it has the internal trappings of political theater. The negotiating, the discussions are happening by the parties you just mentioned, backstage, where you can't see them behind the curtains. But on the stage, all the players are still playing their roles. There is still the music and there is still the dancing. We had House Republicans late this morning outside the Capitol, along with Senate Republicans, reaffirming their ground that there needs to be spending cuts or budget caps for any debt ceiling deal to pass. We had Democrats out there today, including 5 U.S. senators late this afternoon, saying they want the president to invoke the 14th Amendment to prevent these work requirements for some social safety net programs, to prevent the economy from getting tanked by a debt ceiling increase. So even though there are discussions happening backstage, they haven't emptied the stage out front. The audience still has quite a bit to watch here at the Capitol.
And Ed, to that point, this is pretty typical. You have theatrics, and then you have the genuine drama behind the scenes. And as long as the genuine drama behind the scenes is playing itself out, the theater must go on. Yep. Positions must be taken. Poses must be struck until there's something else to discuss.
There is. It's what we call fodder or elements, right? There are plenty of those today if we need them from both sides, including the president who spoke out before he left for Japan.
And it doesn't mean that the theatrics are insincere. They're sincere for the moment.
Right. And frankly, it's meant to keep people on their sides engaged and aware of what is acceptable and unacceptable. And allows them to needle both sides while there are people in the back room actually sitting and talking. If not singing Kumbaya, at least figuring out how to get to that song. And so what was so encouraging to Republicans is that the president put those two people in the room, the budget director and Steve Ricchetti, to talk to them, because now they realize the president's serious. If he's sending in his most trusted advisor and the woman who's writing the budget and who has worked with House Democrats before, it means those are the people who know how to get a deal. They're backed by the woman, Louisa Terrell, who served as the Legislative Affairs Director for the last 2 years. So she knows everything as well. Speaker says, good. That's a conversation I want to be having. I don't need 15 people in the room because you really can only get a deal with a handful.
Keith and Scott MacFarlane, thank you so very much. For more on the debt ceiling, South Dakota Republican Congressman Dusty Johnson joins us now from Capitol Hill. Congressman, it's good to see you. When you were on the takeout a couple of weeks ago, we had a long conversation about work requirements. I know they're a priority for you. Are they a must-have in a debt ceiling deal? Meaning if they're not in there, Republicans won't vote for it.
Oh, I like to avoid talking about red lines because I think it's so important that we get a deal so that we can avoid default and change the way that this country spends money. So I wouldn't say any one thing is a must-have, but I would tell you the Republican conference highly values work requirements because of the impact they can have in moving people out of poverty.
Do they value them more than opening up permitting for energy exploration?
Well, I'm not going to publicly, share our cheat sheet
go ahead.
about
Really,
what
it's all
things
right.
we prioritize more highly than others. Yeah, I would say that clearly the Republicans, listen, they showed their values, their priorities. We passed the limit save, grow plan. It's the only plan that has passed any chamber of commerce. Chuck Schumer doesn't have a plan that could pass the Senate. I think negotiations are going to start going better because, as your broadcast mentioned, Ricchetti and Shalanda Young have now been appointed by the president. For 97 days, the president ignored Kevin McCarthy. He refused to negotiate. I wish we had those 97 days back now, but since we've got the adults in the room, I think we're going to start to make some progress.
The president said today he's confident a deal can be struck. Do you agree? Are you confident?
Well, confidence can be misleading in this town. I mean, is there any place in the world that disappoints us more often than Washington, D.C.? I do think, listen, we can't give up. We've got to stay focused. Default is unacceptable. It would be catastrophic. It's not the only crisis we're facing, though. We're also facing $32 trillion in debt. We have got to get that under control. We're going to get this done. Time is running short, though.
And when, as he did last week, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, describes default as psychological, could be a big deal, could be nothing, I gather you disagree with that.
We should not be defaulting. I get it. Candidates are going to talk about these issues differently than the people who are on the wall, who need to deliver a victory for the American people. I forget who said it, but somebody said, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. I know prose isn't very catchy. I know it doesn't have the same sex appeal as good poetry. But the reality is, listen, we've got to buckle down. We've got to get this work done. I do wish we had the 97 days back that the president squandered away. But I think in the next 13 days, we're going to deliver good value. I think we're going to have caps on spending, and we need to. I think we're going to put people back to work, and we need to. I think we're going to unlock American energy, and we need to do that, too.
Is the discharge petition in the House something you would support and a vehicle to resolve this?
The discharge petition is, it's utter balderdash. I think it's political theater. It doesn't even ripen under the rules of the House until June 6th or June 7th. We will already be in default by the time that mechanism even comes to fruition. So anybody who's serious, anybody who is a serious legislator who wants to focus on solving the problem needs to do everything they can to make it clear to the President of the United States and the Speaker that we need to get a deal that changes how Washington, D.C. spends money. I think they're getting closer, but any other tactical discussions outside of a deal between the President and the Speaker are counterproductive.
Why is it a good idea to refer the George Santos matter to the Ethics Committee?
Number one, I would tell you George Santos is a clown. I wish he wasn't here. He's not a serious legislator. If he went away, it would be perfectly fine by me. But I do think we want to keep an eye to how things have been handled in the past here. That should be a little bit of terra firma if we want the future to be fair because it's based on precedent. We have never kicked people out of Congress just because they've been accused of crimes. The Democrats weren't asking for Senator Menendez to resign after he was accused of felonies. We let these things work. Ultimately, to me, I would be shocked if he wasn't found guilty in a court of law and if he wasn't found liable by the Ethics Committee. When that happens, we will blissfully be rid of George Santos.
I know you have votes to catch on the other side of the Capitol. Congressman Dusty Johnson, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.